There's nothing quite like good old-fashioned hate. Hate breeds competitiveness, which creates rivalries, the lifeblood of American sports. One of the NFL's top rivalries begins its next chapter tonight, as the Chargers head to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. A battle with major playoff implications, and a stage for a young running back to show that he's ready for the big leagues. What's up, everyone? I'm Sam Peña, a Bolt fan in the Berg for Chargers Digest, where we talk about all things Lightning. Today we're talking about the Chargers' Week 2 matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders, one of the oldest rivalries in NFL history that now has a new look to it, with the head coaches Jim Harbaugh and Pete Carroll renewing their rivalry, and of course the additions of Omarion Hampton and Ashton Jeanty. We're going to be taking a look at some of the keys to victory for the Bolts, so without further ado, let's talk about it. I think the first key to victory for the Chargers is simple: attacking this relatively weak Raiders secondary. Now, of course, since Pete Carroll is now the head coach of the Raiders, you can expect a heavy dose of cover 3 or single high safety. It's what he did for years in Seattle, and it was kind of the meta in the NFL for defenses for quite a few years there due to the Legion of Boom. Now, the Legion of Boom was successful because they had a safety in Earl Thomas who had electric athleticism and was able to make those sideline-to-sideline plays, but since then we've seen cover 3 start to disappear. The reason for that is because quarterbacks now have stronger and more accurate arms, and so they're able to fit those throws into tighter windows, which leads to bigger plays against a single high safety look. Now the NFL defenses are starting to run a lot more two high safety looks instead, which is what the Chargers primarily run. But in week 1, what did the Raiders do? What Pete Carroll has always done. They ran the most snaps of any defense in week 1 with a single high safety look. How did the Chargers fare against single high safety looks week 1? Well, they were 9th in EPA according to Pro Football Focus. That means that the Chargers are very successful at being able to attack those coverages, which makes sense because Justin Herbert has one of the stronger arms with a high level of velocity. So if the Chargers are going to be able to exploit this Raiders defense, they're going to have to take advantage of those seam throws and maybe some throws underneath to the running backs as well. That's something that has me a little bit worried because as strong as the Chargers were in week 1 on those seam throws, Greg Roman has never been an offensive coordinator who's known for being able to attack underneath with his running backs in the passing game. We'll see if the Chargers can do that, though, in week 2. And that leads to the second takeaway I have for this game, or the second key to victory, I should say, which is going to be the Chargers offensive line versus this Raiders pass rush. We all know Max Crosby is one of the best defensive players in the NFL, although Joe Walt did a fine job on him last season as a rookie. Now, you can't expect to keep Max Crosby in check all game. There's going to be plays where he's going to make your life hell. I think, though, a big part of this game is going to come down to the Chargers offensive line versus Malcolm Koonce. Koonce was considered one of the up-and-coming stars for this Raiders defense. Then he suffered some injuries, and it seemed like he was never going to actually be able to reach that potential. In week 1 against the Patriots, he played admirably, although he also continued to show some of those inconsistencies. But if we're talking about the Chargers defense versus the Raiders offense, I think this is the more intriguing part of this matchup. The Raiders brought in Geno Smith, obviously, in the offseason, and regardless of what a lot of NFL fans say, those who actually look at the numbers and actually watch the tape know the truth about Geno Smith, which is that he is a very, very good NFL quarterback. Is he a top 5 quarterback? No. Is he a top 10 quarterback? Absolutely. Geno Smith is a baller. I saw some people on Twitter refer to him as the most ethical hooper in all of the NFL because he consistently takes the gutsiest throw that's out there. And you're going to see that quite a bit against this Chargers defense. Geno is going to throw the football downfield, which leads to my next key to victory, which is limiting the explosive plays. We saw in week 1 the Chiefs tried to exploit the Chargers down the field deep, but they weren't able to do so, in big part because Mahomes was simply missing some of those open throws to Tyquan Thornton. There were 3 times where Cam Hart was beat deep by Thornton, and Mahomes just missed him, which led to 79 unrealized air yards against the Chargers. Any of those big plays could have been the difference in the game. Fortunately, they didn't connect. There were a few big plays, though, that did connect, such as that big Travis Kelce 37-yard touchdown, and, of course, that Mahomes 4th and 7 play at the end of the game that extended the Chiefs' life. So the Chargers are going to have to put a cap on that in week 2. I do think a lot of the mistakes that happened last week were due to miscommunications. Hopefully Minter is going to have that down in week 2. But the Chargers have to tighten that up because Smith is going to take those shots, and Smith is going to hit those shots. He's very accurate deep down the field. If the Chargers want to win this game, they have to ensure that he's not getting that explosiveness off. But the biggest way to prevent that is by forcing the Raiders offense into taking only those plays. And that means they're going to have to shut down the Raiders rushing attack, which leads to my next key to the victory, which is Hampton versus Genty. Both of these running backs were highly touted coming into the 2025 NFL Draft. Both of these running backs were considered the top 2 consensus running backs in the NFL Draft, and both of them went in the first round. And if there's one more similarity they have between themselves, it's that they both, I don't want to say disappointed, but underperformed in week 1. Genty seemed to have no running room whatsoever, and Hampton seemed to miss a hole here and there and made a critical mistake that led to 3 points for the Chiefs late in the first half. Now, I think both of these running backs are going to be fine as far as their futures go, but I think that week 1 performance shows there's still a lot of work for them to do before they can become those legit top-tier NFL running backs. For Hampton, I think it's very important that he stays consistent with his vision. When he sees a hole, he needs to hit it, go downhill, and get those extra yards. For Genty, I think he had a couple of weaknesses that were exposed week 1, including in pass protection for the Raiders, but both of them are going to have opportunities against these defensive fronts. I talked about the Chargers being able to limit yards after contact, but one of the things that they struggled with against the Chiefs was that they gave up 2.2 yards before contact, which means their defensive linemen were consistently getting pushed upfield by the Chiefs' offensive line, which means Genty and the Raiders are going to have an opportunity to be able to take advantage of that. On the flip side, I think that the Chargers' offensive line will have some opportunities along the interior of this Raiders' defensive line because as strong as Max Crosby is and as strong as Kuntz can be when he's consistent, the Raiders' interior is relatively weak. So I expect the Chargers to be able to get a little bit of push there. Look for Mekhi Becton to be a big key to this game along the Chargers' offensive line. He was one of the best run-blocking guards in the NFL last year. He didn't perform that way in week 1, but that was more so due to the fact that he had food poisoning, and we didn't even know if he was going to play in that game. And he still was one of the best pass protectors as an offensive lineman last week. Hopefully he'll be able to get that running game online for the Chargers this week. So I think there's going to be opportunities for both of these running backs to make an impact in week 2. We'll see whichever offense is fully able to take advantage of that once the game starts. This game is massive in terms of its implications for the 2025 NFL season. Not just because it's a rivalry game, not just because it's the first matchup of Harbaugh and Carroll in their new colors, and not just because of the rookie running backs. This is a major game for both of these teams because whoever wins this will be in total control of the AFC West at the start of the year. Whoever wins this game, the Chargers or the Raiders, is going to not only have a 2-0 record, they're also going to be 2-0 in their division. And we all know that divisional games, as Harbaugh likes to say, count as 2 wins. So, if the Chargers can pull out this game and take care of business against the Raiders, that Chiefs' grasp on the division is looking weaker and weaker by the day. Here's to hoping the Bolts take care of business. Thank you all so much for watching once again. I'm Sam Peña, a Bolt fan in the Bird for Chargers Digest. I would really appreciate your support. We're trying to build this channel here from the ground up. If you could like and subscribe, I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Until then, remember Bolt Nation, Bolt up.